Let's talk about decisions. From what you're going to eat for lunch to that huge career move, our lives are basically just one long string of choices. So, how do we get better at it? Especially when the stakes are high? Well, let's dive in and figure it out. I mean, get this. Some studies say we make around 35,000 decisions a day. Now, obviously, most of those are tiny, happening in the back of our minds. But what about the big ones, the ones that really count? Is there a secret to getting those right? The good news is, yeah, there kind of is. See, great decision making isn't some kind of magic, it's a skill. And so we're going to break down the science behind it. We'll look at the perfect, ideal process, and then we'll get real about how our brains actually handle things. Okay, first things first, we have to get that not all decisions are created equal. In fact, pretty much every choice you'll ever make falls into one of two very different buckets, and knowing which bucket you're dealing with changes everything. So here it is. At the most basic level, every single choice is either what we call programmed or non-programmed. Simple as that. So what's the difference? Well, programmed decisions are the routine, repetitive stuff. Think of a manager who has to reorder paper for the printer when it gets low. There's a system for that, right? It's structured, it's planned. Non-programmed decisions, well, they're the total opposite. They're unique, they're messy, they're unstructured. This is the big stuff, like, should we launch this brand new product or should we expand into a whole new country? These choices demand real judgment and a bit of creativity. All right, so when you're staring down one of those big, messy, non-programmed decisions, what does the textbook tell you to do? Well, there's a gold standard, a process that's all about pure, cold, hard logic. And this is it. This is the rational decision-making model. On paper, it is a thing of beauty, a perfect, step-by-step roadmap that should, in theory, lead you straight from a problem to the absolute best solution. No guesswork allowed. Let's walk through it real quick. Step 1, you figure out what the real problem is. Step 2, you list out every possible way to solve it. 3, you pick the absolute best one. 4, you actually do it. And 5, and this is key, you gather feedback to see if your solution actually worked. It's supposed to be this perfect self-correcting loop. But here's the catch. Even in this perfect, rational world, you don't actually have unlimited options. Your choices are always stuck inside what's called a discretionary area. Think of it like a sandbox. It's defined by laws, by ethics, by company rules, even by what society thinks is okay. So you can only ever pick from the acceptable options inside that sandbox. Okay, that 5-step process, it sounds amazing, doesn't it? Just follow the steps and you get the best outcome every single time. There's just one tiny little problem with this perfect model. Us. Yeah, our brains have a completely different agenda. You see that clean, logical flowchart we just looked at? In the real world, it almost never works out that way. Why? Because our minds are just, well, they're a lot messier, and frankly, a lot more interesting than that. And this leads us to a really important idea called bounded rationality. A Nobel Prize winner named Herbert Simon came up with it. He basically said, look, we're human. We don't have the time, the knowledge, or the brain power to analyze every single option perfectly. So instead of finding the optimal solution, we do something called satisficing. We just look for the first option that's good enough. It's like when you're hiring someone. You don't interview every single person in the world, right? No, you interview people until you find someone who fits the bill and then you stop. That's satisficing. And you know what? Sometimes taking a leap that isn't perfectly rational is exactly what you need to do. Just look at Tony Fernandez. He saw the founder of EasyJet on TV, got a gut feeling that a low-cost airline could work in Asia, and went out and bought a failing airline for 26 cents. Oh, and he also took on $11 million of its debt. A purely rational analysis would have screamed, no way! But his gut was right, and he turned it into a massive success. But here's the flip side. Relying on our gut can be dangerous. Our brain uses mental shortcuts, and those can create what we call cognitive biases, little glitches in our thinking that lead us astray. For instance, confirmation bias, that's our brain's tendency to only look for proof that we're already right. Or loss aversion, where we're so terrified of losing something that we'll pass up on a huge potential win just to play it safe. These biases can totally sabotage our decision-making without us even realizing it. So what are we supposed to do? If the rational model is too perfect for the real world, and our brains are full of these tricky biases, where does that leave us? Well, this is where we pull out the toolkit. There are actual techniques you can use to add some objective logic back into the mix. One of the most powerful tools out there is probability theory. It uses a really simple formula to basically turn a gut feeling into a hard number. The expected value of a choice is just the potential income times the probability of it happening. So let's say you think a new store location has a 40% shot of making 100 grand. Its expected value is 40,000 bucks. Suddenly, you have a concrete number you can compare against other risky options. It's like a reality check for your intuition. Now, for choices that are even more complex, you've got decision trees. This is awesome. It's a way to map out a series of decisions. You start over on the left with your first choice, like, do we build a big factory or a small one? Then each path branches out depending on things that might happen, those chance events, like, is market demand going to be high or low? By following each and every branch to the end, you can see the potential payoff of every single path. It forces you to think about the downstream consequences of a choice you make today. And of course, you don't always have to go it alone. Bringing other people into the decision can be an incredible tool. But you guessed it, it comes with its own very specific set of pros and cons. Let's start with the good stuff, because the upside is huge. More people means more ideas, period. You get to tap into way more experience and different points of view. Plus, and this is a big one, when people are part of the decision, they feel like they own it. They're way more likely to be all in on making it a success. But there are some serious traps you have to watch out for. Group decisions almost always take longer and cost more. And then there's the biggest danger of all, groupthink. This is what happens when everyone in the room wants to get along so badly that nobody is willing to speak up and challenge a bad idea. Keeping the peace becomes more important than making a smart choice. It's a killer. So that brings us all the way back to the main question here. After looking at these perfect structured models and the messy, biased reality of our own minds, what's the real secret? What's the key to making a great choice? And the answer, it turns out, is that you don't choose. It's not about either or. The best, most effective leaders out there, they don't just trust the data, and they don't just go with their gut. They do both. They use the structured tools to test their assumptions, and they use their intuition to see the things that the numbers might be missing. It all comes down to this idea right here. It's about having the courage to trust your experience, to trust that gut feeling, but also having the humility to use the tools and ask, but what if I'm wrong? That balance, right there, that's the real art and science of making a truly great decision.